You're listening to Faith in the Classic Lounge on Classic FM 94.3 Abuja.
Let's talk about, defending the process and all that, because I remember when the unemployment data came out, late 2018, and there was that incident with the spokesperson for the president, Malam Garba, when he was saying that, it was just white-collar jobs that were focused on, and it was not, the MBS didn't capture data on the agricultural sector and the jobs that were being created there. So let me ask you now, when you do your data, does it capture every sector?
The methodology for the data collection is always captured clearly in the report, and anybody that reads the report would see that it covers all countries. In fact, it's biased more in favor of rural than urban areas, because the population of Nigeria is largely rural and urban. When you're doing these surveys, what is more important is for it to be representative. So yes, it does cover every sector. It does cover rural and urban areas across all 36 states and the FCT. So I guess maybe it was just some misinformation from somewhere, or maybe he just didn't have enough time to study the report. But no, that standard statistical practice, it covers the entire country, rural, urban,
and every sector.
And every sector.
So let's talk about the unemployment data then. We haven't had a recent one. What is going on? Why hasn't that?
MBS is 100% funded by the budget. And first of all, we have to have the budget passed. Now, unemployment surveys are extremely expensive. It's not like inflation data where you're just going to shops. It's a lot cheaper. With very little money, you can probably do that a few times. It's not like data like IGR, right? Just have to get the states to send some information. So there are some studies that cost a lot of money, like unemployment, because you're going everywhere, you're going across the country. GDP data, you're basically just reviewing companies' reports or results, which they file with the FRS for the formal sector. And the formal sector, you are taking a sample. So it's easier to do. But unemployment, you are going to households across the country. It takes a lot of time and cost a lot of money. So depending on when you get your funds, you can do some things and you can't do others. And that's the problem with unemployment data. We got 40% of our budget
for 2019.
So you can only do 40% of whatever is there. Now in fact, the 40% was almost 100% of what was needed for the unemployment study. So I have to decide that
if you wanted to just focus on that,
and do nothing else. So you have no inflation, no GDP, no other data but unemployment, or get under 20 indicators and step down unemployment. So that's the decision I had to take. I felt that it was better to have 10, 20 other, 30 other indicators across different sectors than just do an unemployment study and have nothing else to produce. So that's the decision you'd have to take when you don't have your funding fully met. And now in 2020, the same thing. The budget has been approved, but funding for our statistical activities, which falls under our capital budget, has not been released to anybody. It's not just about MBS. Until that is done. Again, it's not an MBS thing, that there's no MDA that maybe defense
that has gotten
anything. So when that is done, then of course we'll update the unemployment. That's all it is. That's really all it is.
But at the end of the day, if you don't get looking at how funding for the budget is even difficult, and then you weighing the coronavirus and the crash of oil prices, who knows how much percentage you will get? Does it mean that we might not still get unemployment data for this year?
If we don't get funding, we don't make up the numbers. They are not done in my office. We don't sit down across a table and just
let's just put this together.
If we don't get the funding to do the work, we'll get no data. That's simple as that. Unless we get we have to get the funding, either from government or from some NGOs, or but the funding.
Does that happen? Do you get funding from NGOs?
We have, not to do our core activities. The NGOs, development agencies, you'll see us partnering with UNODC on corruption surveys, or with the World Bank on the living standard. Now they come and say they want to get some particular indicators that we don't have, and they bring the funding. So we have a partnership, but it's not that they're going to give us funding for inflation or for unemployment, unless that is something that they are interested in. Yeah, so that's basically, you see some surveys. Somebody confronted me a few days ago saying that he suspects that we're not doing the unemployment data because I've been told not to, because he's seen other indicators being published, which means I'm just avoiding it. I had to explain to him that he was calling UN. I said these are funded by other people, not government. So if anybody wants to fund unemployment, they should see us and they'll get the
unemployment data. But is that not also important for the government? I mean, if you're planning for your country, you do not know how many people are out of job, and people are unemployed or underemployed. How do you plan? Is the importance of this not seen? Is that what it is?
unemployment data, like any other indicator we publish, inflation, GDP, IGRs, they're all important, and they're all needed for different types of planning. Different indicators are used for different things. So I wouldn't say there's any particular one that is more important. They're all important for planning. I don't think government. My government is saying they don't give us money in terms of saying take this for unemployment.
Do this and do this. It's up to you to allocate what you want to do.
They give us our budget. As long as we don't exceed the budget, we don't go beyond what has been approved by National Assembly. When the money comes, it's up to me to decide, okay, can we do unemployment plus other things, or is it enough to do the unemployment at all in the first place, or should we pick unemployment over under 20 indicators? And so the government is not coming and saying we're not giving you money for unemployment per se. You are getting money for your statistics budget. As the chief executive, is up to me to decide, is it important to do 50 indicators that might be used across the sectors, across development agencies, across businesses, or just do one that a few people might. And if I have enough funding, of course I'll do everything. The previous year we got the reason why you got up to 2018, because that year we got about 90% of our funding. So you got your unemployment data. When you get 40%, it means I can only do 40% of what's in the budget. That's just how it is.
Let me ask you this. I mean, you're talking about the fact that sometimes you have funding from NGOs when they're interested in some kind of data.
Yes.
So you have ongoing partnerships with these people, because you have the whether it's IMF or the World Bank, they talk about data in Nigeria, also number of poor people and things like that. Do they collaborate with you? Do they get their information from you solely?
The only time that development agencies do their estimates is if there is no Nigerian estimate available. They do not. I've not seen any development partner agents, any World Bank or IMF indicator that contradicts us. The only time that they are forced to do estimates is when we don't have the data readily available, so they use their models and so on. So yes, all the data that exists in NBS is exactly what is used by these people for all their work. The only time that you see data that did not come from us is just because we don't have it, and they are forced to make some estimates for forecast just so they can continue doing their work. But we are not supposed to be doing forecast. We are supposed to get actuals, go to the field and get exactly what it's saying there. We're not going to just be guessing or pulling out numbers from
Yeah, we're talking about actuals now. We have, like I said, South Africa just slipped into a recession. We're having the global economy being reviewed downwards because of coronavirus, and oil prices are crashing. The markets are not doing well. In fact, there are economists and pundits talking about this might lead to a global recession and things like that. Yeah, we got out of one not too long ago. The Nigerian economy is said to be growing, albeit slowly. With the data available to you, are you looking at, I don't want to use the R word, but it's somewhere hanging there. Is it possible that a recession is in the horizon?
I would use it. Yes, a recession has always been. In fact, before the virus, our economy was growing. Yes, moving in the right direction, getting stronger every quarter, but it was still always very, very fragile anyway. So a recession is definitely very possible in the event of a global. In fact, a global recession will hit us immediately, and that's because the contagion effect. Nigeria is very tied to the global economy, both in terms of trade, in terms of aid, and the fact that our major export, oil, it's just less than 10% of GDP, but it has an indirect impact on the non-oil sector of about 50%. So directly or indirectly, the oil sector determines about 60% of our economy. So what happens to oil is going to hit everybody else. So yes, it is very likely, if things continue the way they are or get worse, that we're going to go into another recession with the rest of the world. Our major imports comes from China, for example.
Yes.
A lot of our exports also go to the European Union, which a few countries are having these challenges. Imports are not necessarily a bad thing from China, but because some of these imports will hit trade, some of them are things we need for manufacturing other companies as raw materials. So it's very, very, and that's why the presidency also announced a committee to look at these things, because it can hit us both in terms of trade and hit a lot of sectors. Any economic activity where you have a lot of people gather together, from transportation, air transportation, to hotels and restaurants, to to arts, entertainment. I mean, things, those kind of sectors would be hit, and trade is the second largest. Is the second largest sector in our GDP. So there's a huge threat, and that's why I think I'm happy that government has identified that threat and have set up a committee to ensure that they come and look at how these things are going to affect the economy, just even the reserves as well.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different possibilities that could take us to a recession, but I think the most important thing is that our government has realized that there's a threat, and they're setting up a committee whose job it is to look at these threats and see how we can minimize the impacts, or even stop them if possible.
Okay.
You're listening to Faith in the Classic Lounge on Classic FM 94.3 Abuja.